saving the world never goes out of style. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is the Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Welcome back to the Spy-Fi guys, where we cover spy fact, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And welcome yet again to our Swingin' 60s Spy Summer. All this summer we have been and will continue to be breaking with our usual formula, covering exclusively fictional spy movies and TV shows that are made or set during the golden age of spy cinema, the 1960s. So grab your go-go boots and put on your ascot because it's time to get groovy.
And welcome back to our guests from last week, Kelly and Carolyn.
Hello. Good to be back.
Zach, you're ruining, the whole C or K sound in this. We got Christian, Carolyn, Kelly, and Zach.
And me. I love being the exception. So today we are back with the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie from 2015, starring Henry Cavill, Armie Hammer, and Alicia Vikander, a.k.a. the Tomb Raider.
That's your go-to thing for what she's been in?
Yeah. That's the level of cinema that I consume.
Isn't she in the Danish girl? Isn't she the
Danish girl?
The guy
from the title?
No.
No?
That would be, what's his name?
Eddie Redmayne.
Eddie Redmayne.
Oh, she's the girl in that?
I think so.
I watched that on a plane.
But she's also in the last Jason Bourne movie, if I recall. But we're not talking about that movie today. We are talking about The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yes, we are.
So we saw last week, the show that this was based on, and we're covering the movie. What did you guys, just overall, actually, Kelly, since you are our expert, or at least more so than the rest of us, what do you think of the differences between the two?
I think they took kind of the base idea of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and tried to sort of spin it into like a more modern, kind of like more similar to like the modern James Bond movie style, which was interesting.
And it sort of also gives like a origin story for them too, right? Because I don't think you get that in the show. Yeah,
and a couple of parts of that are a little, like, I don't know. They don't really fit exactly with the TV show characters. And I was reading that one of the actors was saying, like, he didn't even really, like, look at the character from the TV show because he didn't want to, like, steal the acting. And I was like, huh. But
I read something about that when I was just doing a little Googling that only the guy who played Ilya actually watched the TV show.
Yeah, so it's interesting. And it's also interesting because his character is probably like the least similar to his TV show character. So it's kind of funny that he's the one that actually watched it.
That's true. Yeah. And I think that's interesting for me because I would have thought it was the other way around, because it almost sounds like Henry Cavill is like adopting the cadence of talk and the way of talking that Robert Vaughn had. That very particular way that he talks.
Because like Napoleon Solo's character was developed by, Ian Fleming and has a little bit more of that typical James Bond character element. So maybe, like it's a little easier to play it that way and feel like modern audiences would like it. Whereas I think, he's like very quiet and enigmatic in the TV show. You don't really know anything about his background. I mean, he's Russian, and there's jokes about him being Russian, and he'll make jokes about communism and stuff. But like you just don't really know what he does in his spare time. Whereas I think they added a lot of like background elements to his character in the movie.
Did he have a rage problem in the show?
No, it's the exact opposite. He's very quiet and very calm. He's kind of like that polar opposite kind of personality to Napoleon's more boisterous, exuberant personality. Like Illa would never like be with a woman. Like he wouldn't need to. Like whereas Napoleon's always trying to like find some girl. You can just imagine that he would be fine going home, kicking back, reading his book,
playing chess.
He's like Spock.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it last week at all. And I guess it's harder to tell in that episode because it's not really focused on Ilya, but we didn't address that. Oh yeah, he's Russian working for a seemingly Western intelligence organization during the height of the Cold War.
Yeah, they don't really give you any background on that. I don't remember.
Oh, that is interesting.
There's more just like kind of references. Like he's not like a gosh, I'm trying to think of the word. He's not an expatriate or defector. Yeah, he's not a defector. He's a Russian in good standing. Like, I remember there's an episode where he goes to Russia to, like, help them out with something. And I think the movie does kind of a good job of giving a reason of why the two agencies might have gotten together. I like that aspect for sure, because the idea that there's an evil or a matter that's pressing that kind of overrides the feelings between the two countries temporarily,
which is
right?
like a trope in a bunch of the James Bond movies too, where he'd work with like a Russian agent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
And Independence Day.
Right.
I think that's what the big speech was about.
Sure. Anyways, we're not talking about Independence Day today. So why don't we just get right into the movie? Zach, do you have the synopsis from IMDb?
I do. In the early 1960s, CIA agent Napoleon Solo and KGB operative Ilya Kuryakin participate in a joint mission against a mysterious criminal organization which is working to proliferate nuclear weapons.
So I know that they'd never say it in the movie, but I think some of the writers have spoken that this also, not only was it supposed to be an origin for Uncle, but the bad guys were supposed to be Thrush.
Huh.
But they never said that.
They never said it, and they would have gone more into it in a sequel, which sadly has never been produced.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it probably will be. But I feel like it works just fine without them being Thrush.
It does, given that this came out in 2015, which in my mind was like the year of the spy, because you had Rogue Nation coming out, you had Spectre coming out, you had Spy coming out, maybe one of the Kingsman movies as well. I don't remember. Particularly with Spectre and Rogue Nation, there were both other remakes or reboots of something in the 60s where they specifically brought back, for example, for Spectre, obviously they brought back Spectre, but for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, they brought back the Syndicate, which was like the evil organization from the show. So maybe they thought, all right, if these are happening, maybe we should also had another one and add Thrush to it as well.
I will say, when I watched the TV show with my fiance last week, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but he was like very perturbed about Thrush. Like why is this organization, like, what are they? I was like trying to explain. I guess they're like kind of like like an international criminal syndicate, but some ways in the show it's almost like they're like the KGB and the US is like the CIA. You know what I mean? Like it's like kind of it's like you want to have that polar opposite organization,
right? Exactly.
But because you're bringing in like people like Russians and Americans, it can't be like a government agency. So I think it's a little tricky.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why like organizations like Spectre or the Syndicate, or when we get into it in a future week, Chaos from Get Smart. These are all basically that same formula, and they've all got like acronym letters too. We start off the movie with a very cool jazzy like music opening, which I was disappointed it wasn't the Man from U.N.C.L.E. theme. It was just some jazzy music, and that get a title sequence with Cold War history. In headlines, people trying to get across the wall, photos of JFK or Winston Churchill. And then we finally get to 1963, Checkpoint Charlie. Napoleon Solo, played by Henry Cavill, and basically an audition for James Bond. And we get a glimpse of this big Russian guy watching him, who we find out is Ilya Kuryakin. And he finally gets to this garage, this chop shop. And so he's talking to whoever's under the hood of the car, working on it in German, saying that he can get them over the wall. And we find out that the mechanic is a girl whose name is Gabby Teller.
And you know what this reminded me of, Christian?
What?
Night and Day.
Real? Oh, right, because she's a mechanic in that.
That's right.
I didn't even think about that.
And she's tough and she doesn't take any nonsense, except when she brings up nonsense with other people. We'll get to that later.
When the way you were describing, Illa's character, that was the part that throws me off every time I see it. I'm like, wait, that's him? Because it just doesn't. Like, he's so big, right, and muscular. Right. You're like, wait, is this okay? You kind of get used to it as the story progresses, but
well, I mean, they're both like huge. Time.
Yeah, they are.
Ilya's taller than Solo, isn't he? Henry Cavill is not a small guy. So the fact that Ilya towers over him is like, how big is he?
Henry Cavill's 6'1".
Wait, how tall is what's his name? I always
He's
forget
not
his
playing
name.
in the NBA with that height. I'll tell you that much.
How tall is what's the other actor's name?
Armie Hammer is
Armie
6'5".
Jeez.
There you go then.
Yeah, so we find out that Gabby's father was basically Hitler's favorite rocket scientist. So apparently in this universe, he is bigger than Werner von Braun.
Mm-hmm.
And that Dr. Teller came over to work for the Americans to work on their nuclear program, but disappeared 2 months ago. And until now, when he reappeared in Rome. Solo is trying to find, where Dr. Teller is, thinks that Gabby is his best bet, and that she can get in contact with her Uncle Rudy, who might know where Dr. Teller is.
Do they explain more about the stakes? Is this where they explain that he's like some kind of nuclear guy too?
Nah, yes,
later?
It's a bit later, if I recall. Yeah.
Okay.
So they get into a car. She drives. He's lying down in the back seat. Ilya pulls up alongside them in this tiny car known as a Trabant.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Are they both in Trabants or just him?
No. The car that Gabby is driving is not a Trabant. I did not look up what it was, but the Trabants have a clear, distinctive design, and we'll talk more about those later.
Yeah, featured highly in the Checkpoint Charlie Museum in at the point of West and East Berlin.
Oh, that's right. You've been
Adam
there.
and I-
Both of you
Adam
guys
and
have
I
been there.
Took
Wait,
some pictures in one of the models. I think we sent
Carolyn,
them. Yeah.
have you been to this
Well,
Spy
I've been
Museum?
to Checkpoint Charlie, but I don't think we
Okay.
actually went to the museum because I was with a group that the tour guide was giving us our own kind of city.
Zach,
So that's
You've
really
been
cool.
as well, right?
So I went to Checkpoint Charlie, but I didn't go to the museum there.
Okay.
But
all
while
right.
we're talking about visiting Berlin, I wanted to mention that I watched this movie with my sister, and she noticed on their map that they were
Yeah.
driving through an area called Prenzlauberg.
Okay.
Does this sound familiar?
No?
It's a detail. I guess you can go back and
Oh.
look if you really want to. But we went there to visit a board game store while we were
nice.
in Berlin.
Okay, so that makes me the only member of this podcast who hasn't been to Germany and hasn't been to Checkpoint Charlie. And now I need to go.
It should be
Well, I
high on
want to
your
go
list.
anyways, but
And you should go to the Spy Museum when you're there. We didn't make
definitely
it there.
want
but-
to do that. Also, and I want to talk a little bit more about this later, but the Spy Museum in DC has a lot about Trabants, and I've ridden one. Zach, have you ridden one?
Oh, sure. Bunch of
Yeah.
times.
Kelly, did you actually get to ride in one? Carolyn, you've ridden one, though.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
They're fun little cars, but yeah, so Ilya's driving up in a Trabant, and Napoleon Solo, he's lying down in the back seat and is trying to shoot Ilya, but Ilya moves just as fast as he does, and so they start this car chase, which made me wonder, how is the Trabant going that fast? These things are run on basically little lawnmower engines. There's no way to be able to go that fast.
Oh, I have an answer for that because Alicia Vikander upgraded it because she's just that awesome at mechanics.
No. That's fine for her car.
Uh-huh.
For Ilya's car, how is he moving that fast?
Oh, well, he has a super sweet, souped-up spy car. I mean, come on.
Souped up Trabant.
Yeah.
Money
guess
on the
they could-
KGB agent, so maybe they want him to blend in, but really they use better parts.
That's fair. So
I'm
yeah,
sure
they
I
have
can
this
do that.
really cool car chase through East Berlin.
And then while this is going on, we also get a little bit of a flashback to Ilya being briefed about Napoleon, so we get his
Oh, yes.
background.
Mm-hmm.
Is this all accurate to the show, Kelly? That he doesn't actually want to be in the CIA, but they're kind of making him to avoid prison, kind of like the Vietnam War.
No, but I was like, wait, did they steal the plot of White Collar and kind of blend it in there?
Basically. And I mean, it's funny because Matt Bomer from White Collar and Henry Cavill do have a certain resemblance.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
I kept thinking about White Collar throughout the show, especially when we get in later into the break-in scene.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yes, I totally see that now.
But anyway, so the short version of Napoleon's background is he used to be a thief, like a master criminal, basically, and then he finally got caught, and now he works for the CIA to earn time off his sentence. It's like
White Collar.
It's like White Collar combined with the Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
Maybe I guess he didn't kill anybody.
A little bit of what's it? Catch Me If You Can in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Napoleon Solo shoots at the car that Ilya's driving in and takes out the car, and so they think that's the end of it. But of course, Ilya is like an indestructible, Terminator.
He's like the Bionic Man.
This got me. I was like, because he starts running after the car, and I was like, how is he catching up with this car? But it made sense a little bit when I rewatched it because he shoots out the back tires of the car. So it's not going as fast as it actually could.
I thought he was the $6 million man. Kelly, did you ever watch that?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but yes.
Okay.
We can rebuild him faster, stronger.
He also grabs like a door and like throws it at their car.
I know. So what he does is he grabs onto the trunk. He tries to stop the car, and he's sliding along, and then he pulls off the trunk.
I thought we weren't watching a superhero movie, but at first you're like, maybe.
Maybe. Is he the Russian Captain America?
I can see it.
And then he like throws it up in the air, and it takes like a good 5 seconds to come down.
And lands right into the trunk of the... Also, I like the part here where he's like grabbing onto the car. Solo's like looking at him, just staring in amazement, and the guy's like, shoot him or something. And it's like, it just doesn't seem right somehow.
Oh, I like that line a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Staring in amazement.
I thought he was going to say something like, it'll just bounce off if I do.
That would have been good too. But I just like the tone if there's like amazement and curiosity and maybe a little bit of horror in there. Yeah.
Sure.
Ilya is running, trying to catch up with him. He gets stopped by the Stasi. So he beats up the Stasi officers.
Well, he doesn't just beat them up. His finger like twitches. And then he goes into robo mode or whatever.
His psychotic episode, basically.
Mm-hmm. But he also says at this point, like, shoot Napoleon, but I want the girl alive, and uses the girl, which I've already complained about. I really like that. Right. They escape to the roof, and there's a friend waiting on the other side with a grappling hook in a car.
Napoleon and Gabby zip line across the Berlin Wall, or across, not just across over the Berlin Wall, across the Death Strip.
It's not as preposterous as it seems. When I was at that museum at Checkpoint Charlie, it's all kinds of crazy stories, but one family hot air ballooned over the wall.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Though it begs the question that if this grapple is so effective, why don't they just use it all the time?
Well, there's usually a lot of people with machine guns that are standing right there.
Yes.
I'm surprised that Ilya didn't get shot when he tried to follow them.
It actually kind of explains. Good point, Carolyn, because he was like, don't shoot because you'll hit the girl.
Oh, that's true.
Otherwise, they probably would have been gunned down immediately. But somehow I don't think Napoleon Solo factored that in. Or maybe he did.
Maybe he did. But so Ilya tries to go after them. They back up the car that the zip line's attached to. So he gets stuck on the other side of the wall, and they release the line, and so he just lands very nicely, just like cat-like landing.
But doesn't get blown up by the mines, apparently.
Apparently not. He landed perfectly, so he didn't get hit by a mine.
It's very lucky on his part.
Okay, so in the next part, we meet Jared Harris as his American handler.
Oh, that's who that is.
A.k.a. Professor Lanasov from Chernobyl.
Oh, that's where you went with that.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking obviously he's the son of Richard Harris, who was Dumbledore in the first few movies. And he's also Moriarty in the Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. movies.
Oh, I should watch that. You also know him from Mad Men, which is in the IMDb trivia because he was in this movie after being in Mad Men, so it's like he never left the 60s.
But yeah, so his boss tells him that this job isn't done. The next morning, he's walking in a park with his boss. They walk into this public restroom I don't remember the boss's name is, but the boss starts giving him, details about what the next job is, and then Ilya appears in the bathroom, and they fight.
Bathroom fight.
Yeah, so this is Henry Cavill's second bathroom fight in a spy movie. Of course, the more famous one would be Mission Impossible Fallout. Maybe if, Henry Cavill had reloaded his arms, he would have won this fight.
And of his mustache of power.
Yes.
But I do like the joke where they're fighting and Jared Harris doesn't even react.
I didn't realize that Ilya was Ilya at the beginning. So the whole first fight or chase scene, I was like, all right, Henry Cavill getting chased by a random villain guy. And then he comes up again. I was like, what? I guess he's going to be significant. Because I didn't realize at all that this Ilya was the same person as Ilya in the show. Like Kelly was saying, they're totally different. I'm like, okay, random guy that I'm not going to care about. Whatever chase scene. And I'm like, oh.
Well, I think the movie was intended if you didn't have any familiarity with the show, right? You'd still get into it. So probably a lot of people got surprised there.
Yeah. And I've seen this movie before, but it's been 5 years and I didn't remember basically anything about it.
I know. I saw it with you guys.
Ilya's got Solo in a headlock, and then Ilya's boss stops them, speaks some Russian, and Solo is like, "What does that mean?" And says, "Don't kill your partner on their first day." And says, "I understood the Russian. What does that mean? We're partners?" Yeah. So this is where we get a bit of a plot dump. The company that they're investigating, Vinciguerra Shipping, is a front for an organization with ties to former Nazis. And so Vinciguerra's son and his wife, son Alexander and wife Victoria, are the ones who run it. They potentially have Dr. Teller. He is helping them improve nuclear devices, and basically so they need to find him and find all his information, his notes, which it would all be on a computer disk, which was an interesting looking computer disk.
Well, it was the 1960s. They didn't even have floppy disks then.
Yeah.
And then I like the joke here that when the bosses get up to leave, like 30 guys stand up at the same time.
Not just 30, everyone in the cafe that they're at. Yeah, and so this is where we get a little bit of backstory on Ilya. Apparently, after he ran into him, Solo did a little bit of homework on him, and so we find out that Ilya's dad was a pal of Stalin, but got caught embezzling state funds, and he was taken to the gulag when Ilya was very young, and that's when he started having these psychotic episodes. And he starts also like calling Ilya's mother.
So what do you guys think about this scene?
I think it's really inappropriate that they put in the psychotic. Like that, I don't understand why they decided that was important. Why couldn't they just have him be like a strong guy? I don't know. Inappropriate and kind of strange.
I don't know that this added anything to it. I can almost see but it's not enough to make it a big thing.
And basically like Napoleon is
being a jerk.
Making fun of him, being a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to weigh in. Originally, I agreed with you guys completely. Yes, he's being a jerk. What a douche. But then I was like, wait a minute. I think this is how he survives in this world of spies. So Ilya can beat him up anytime Ilya feels like it, right? He doesn't have a chance in close combat. So the only way that Napoleon can get one up on him is by getting into his head with his personality, charisma. That's how he is effective.
I can see that, but this is also a guy played by Henry Cavill who is ridiculously strong. So
well, we just saw him lose a fight.
I know,
right?
And I know that they're trying to sell that too, but also I'm never going to believe that Henry, Cavill is going to really lose that spectacularly in a fight. He's Superman. He's the Witcher. Come on.
I did have that thought when he was saying all those mean things. I was like, Henry Cavill, you can't say something like that.
That's Superman.
Sell it well enough because it's just not his personality that he typically plays.
So next we go to a boutique store. Gabby's getting some dresses and trying on clothes with Solo, and Ilya comes in. Gabby's surprised because she didn't know that he'd be participating in this as well. And is even more mad when she finds out that she has to act like Ilya's her fiance.
The guy that basically tried to chase you and kill you.
Well, no, he didn't want to kill her.
But she didn't know that.
Well, she didn't know that.
This is true.
So there are a couple of things here. Is he's like, he's like, Russian would not dress his woman that way.
Yeah. I like that, actually. I thought that was pretty funny.
I liked the argument over style about things. Mainly because, and I don't know if he listens to it, but one of our good friends, Cameron, and I have a similar sort of friendly antagonistic relationship as Ilya and Solo, into arguing over style and things like that. So it just sort of amuses me.
I read something that after the show, there was a reunion episode of Man of Uncle, and Ilya goes into high fashion or something like that. So it was sort of nod.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Something 1985 reunion.
I mentioned it last week. That's the one where George Lazenby appears.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Anyways, so they have an argument over style of whether things, what things will match with what, which was amusing. And then we go to Rome, which is where Vinciguerra Shipping is. So they're all checking into the same hotel, but we also overhear someone named Waverly is checking in.
And if we hadn't watched that episode, I would have had no idea what that meant. And if there weren't like Waverly rings all over and over and over again, I wouldn't have gotten it either.
Waverly.
Yeah, where are the rings here? Gabby and Ilya, seeing the sights, they go to the Spanish Steps, which we've been... How many years ago was that, Carolyn? That was like 3 years, maybe?
3? Yeah.
We've been to
2017.
to Rome and to the Spanish Steps. There are not that many... Well, first of all, there are a ton of people there usually, and there's not that many... There's no flower shops.
Well, it could have just been when we went. I'll give him the benefit of that.
I like the part here where he's like, he's built by Russian, not Spanish, which I thought he was like joking.
Yeah.
Like it was like in Star Trek when Chekhov claims that Russians invented all this stuff. But then he just keeps going and going and going. So I guess he's just really smart and knows all this stuff.
He's making up stuff.
Yeah. Like that is more fitting in his character. Like he definitely knows more. Like I think not that he's smarter, but as far as like science and technology goes, he's definitely the more expert or focused of the two.
You said there were jokes about like him being Russian in the show. So did he like claim that things were actually invented by Russians, or is that more of like a Chekhov joke in Star Trek?
Yeah, it's more. I think probably more of that reference because it's just like his communist ideologies will sometimes come out. Actually,
okay.
Here, this is I was trying to find a time when it would be appropriate to add this in, but that was one thing in the movie that I felt like it was missing was, there's a little bit here early on where they're kind of talking about the differences between the two, but then it's like they're just like, co-workers working together. There's never any real references to his political beliefs being like polar opposite of Napoleon's, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the show, here's a funny quote. One time Napoleon summons him on the intercom and says, "We're in need of your talents. Are you free?" And he replies, "No man is free who has to work for a living, but I am available."
Oh, that's really good.
I know.
That is very good. Yeah.
That's something that I want to talk about. I guess we'll talk about now is the people that were saying that the draw of the show is the interplay between Napoleon and Ilya. And we didn't get that at all in the episode that we saw last week. Now, it's not anybody's fault because the episode was all about George and Carla, and there wasn't a lot of room for Ilya, but I would have liked to have seen that the way it was done in the classic series.
I think we should have gotten an episode, like looking back now, I forgot how much the movie was focused on Ilya, so it would have been good to get an episode that was more centered on him, just so you could see the differences. Anyway,
well, we'll just have to go back and watch more.
Yeah.
We'll just have to watch more of the show, yeah.
Yeah, so.
If I find a good episode, Zach, if I watch them later, I'll let you know if there's a good one that I feel
I would watch it.
Okay.
Napoleon Solo comes by, and he's like, some thugs are waiting for you around the corner, but you have to let them rob you. You have to let them mug you, because otherwise your cover will be blown.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this doesn't make Ilya happy at all. But he has to resist that. So they go right around the corner to the Colosseum. Not actually right around the corner. And the goons find them. They take his wallet, and then they take his father's watch.
Which, hang on, the father's watch. It's such an important plot point, but I'm like, why would you take your father's watch on a dangerous mission?
He just wears a watch. Then he wears his father's watch.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be stolen. There's any number of things that could have happened to it. He could have lost it. It could have been damaged or destroyed or something.
Watches back in the day were made much more sturdily, and they would survive much more things. Not like, I don't want to talk too much about the repair shop that we've been watching, but that's what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Things aren't made like they used to.
Like, look at him. Like, he doesn't typically need to be worrying about anyone attacking him.
That's true, too. Yeah.
Which is why it's such a difficult scene for him, right?
It's true. And that's the life he lives, and he wants to wear his father's watch, so.
It's a good scene, though. Wait, what's Alicia Vikander's character name? Gladys
Gabby.
or something?
Gabby.
Gabby? Okay. She's like, he's never even been in a fight.
They take all the things and the engagement ring, and then as they're walking away, he punches one of them.
That was great. The no-look throat punch. I was just like, pow. And he's like, Russian architect would fight, but Russian agent would kill them. So my cover isn't really blown when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
So they go back to the hotel. Solo's in his room, and one of the hotel receptionists brings a bottle of champagne up. He invites her to join him. And as this is going on, Gabby's calling Uncle Rudy. Apparently there's a party tomorrow. And then Gabby starts drinking a lot of vodka. At least I assume it was vodka. while
And
Ilya is.
Ilya is sad about his watch and moping around the hotel room.
So this scene is so strange. Can we talk about this? I don't understand this at all. So
Okay.
Gabby is like, through 90% of the movie, she's like super serious and like very focused. And she's like, I hate this whole situation. I just want to go back to my mechanic store. I don't want to deal with any of this. I don't like any of you. I don't like. Okay, I made my point. But then in this scene, she's like, let's dance and have fun and like have a good time. But she also is still serious about the dancing at the same time. So it's very strange. I mean, we learn later that she's playing them the whole time. But like, what did you guys think during this part?
Wasn't sure.
I felt like it was, the stress of it all was giving to her. They just got mugged and she had to play a part and there's all this stuff going on. So she just wanted to get drunk, and by getting drunk, just forget about everything and kind of cut loose and dance. So what else are you going to do in a hotel room after you've had a stressful experience?
And wrestle.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Get some aggression out.
I think first she slaps him, and then he makes him slap. She makes her. Pronouns are hard.
I think she just slaps him a bunch of times.
No, one of the times she uses his hand to make him slap himself.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not very happy about that.
No.
He says that's not what a Russian wife would, or fiance would do, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so then they wrestle. And that's not a euphemism.
Yeah, I thought it was, and then you see them like actually wrestling around on the floor. You're like, okay.
There's even a shot of like someone going past their room and hearing like things being broken, and
they don't question it. They just keep walking after a while, I guess. They almost kiss. Like she's basically pinned him down, and her mouth gets closer and closer, and then she just passes out on his shoulder.
Because she's that drunk, apparently.
She's pretty
she didn't seem drunk. That's what I was getting at. She wasn't like, come to ask with me. Yeah.
Okay, not everyone gets drunk like you, Zach.
Hey, not nice.
I'm just kidding. But I don't think I've actually ever seen you. No, I take that back.
Haha.
You're just quiet.
Exactly. Okay, so at this point, my sister was like, I want them to get together. They're cute together. And I said, do you think there's going to be a love triangle with Henry Cavill? She says, I hope not. He's a tool.
Aww.
Referring to Napoleon.
His character is.
I mean, Napoleon is kind of a tool, but yes.
Seen it all like a reference to Goldfinger, except the opposite, or is that just me trying to read into it? You know how they wrestle in that, and then he ends up on top of her, but in this one, she's on top of him. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, maybe it was in your mind because we were talking about that last week too.
Oh yeah,
we did
that's
bring
true.
it up. Yeah, but that's an interesting take on that. Yeah, we go back up to Napoleon's room where the receptionist is leaving. He's reaching for the phone and then finds a bug in the phone. He's going through there's bugs everywhere, including in his suit.
For like 20 bugs.
Yeah. Grabs all the bugs, brings them up or down to Ilya's room, like knocks on the door, and like throws all these, Russian-made bugs at him. And of course, in exchange, Ilya gives him this handful of, American-made bugs, which apparently also very cheaply made.
Yeah, they're low tech. Yeah. Which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go up to the track. We see Solo there first, and he does the classic, bump into someone and use that as a distraction to grab something. And so he steals an invitation from someone.
I was like, wait, is that Hugh Grant? What? What's he doing there?
I didn't recognize that he was Hugh Grant, so nice job.
And as he's doing this, he sees Victoria. The actress is someone. I don't remember what her name is.
Oh, it's like Elizabeth Debicki or something.
That is correct. What else is she in? Well, she's in...
going to be Princess Diana in The Crown.
Yes, in the 5th season of The Crown.
Oh, that's her? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think she'll be good.
So,
yeah, she will be. Yeah,
so Solo arrives, but his invitation isn't enough, so he has to, make a scene.
No, it's not quite that. So basically, he needs to get Victoria's attention. So
he makes a scene to accomplish
He makes a scene, and she gives her apologies.
So meanwhile, they meet the uncle, who is immediately suspicious of Ilya, and apparently also racist. I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's something unkind.
It may not matter to, you Russians, but good German girl will know you don't breed something like a racing stock with like a workhorse or something like that.
Right.
Probably more classist.
Oh,
right?
Not necessarily racist, but classist.
Well,
yeah.
Germans despised each other. I mean,
this is true.
so there was to a certain degree some some racism in the way they treated each other, particularly like people they captured. So I don't know if you call it racism or nationalism. What do you call it when you're racist against somebody for the country that they're from?
Tribalism,
Tribalism, yeah.
Jingoism, xenophobia. There's so many words.
Xenophobia, yeah, you could use that.
Okay, so I'm going to want to bring this up now, which is Ilya's posing as an architect. He's like, I am architect or something like that. And I was reading an article that was like, apparently every romantic comedy, at least one of the characters is an architect.
Wow.
Really?
If you go and look, yes, it's very common.
Hold on.
That's a lot of movies to fit that.
Well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of them. And the most obvious one I can think of is Ted in How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Even though that's a show, not a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But there are others. And I guess the idea is that it's like, it's an office job, but it's also pretty prestigious and you can make enough money while not working 60 hours a week like a banker or whatever. So
it's got like some creativity to it, right? You're drawing stuff kind of. So maybe it's a little bit sexier than like a accountant.
That's funny.
Moving on, we meet Hugh Grant. He's Waverly. And Ilya works out his aggression on some civilians.
Not just civilians. Very rude, like Italian aristocrats.
Okay, still.
Won't let him use the sink.
Guys, come on. He's like psycho. I don't care how rude they were to him. You went in there looking for a fight.
No, he went in there to use the sink.
He has avoided fights like 2 or 3 times so far. So I think this is just one fight that he couldn't avoid.
He could have them all out of the bathroom, right? Like he seemed like he could have easily overpowered them, but I guess he went in a little bit of a rage. So one ends up in the hospital. Yeah.
We don't even see what he did to them.
No, we don't. Actually, the one who he sends to the hospital is named Count Lippy, which is actually also a character in Thunderball. There's a character named Count Lippy, so that caught my attention. Yeah,
probably was a reference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I also wanted to mention during this part is we see more of Solo's like swift hands where he's constantly stealing stuff from other people. But the part where he does the tablecloth trick where you pull the tablecloth and nothing moves. Apparently Henry Cavill really knew how to do that and they didn't do any special effects.
Oh, that's funny. I also like the snobby comment about it. Oh, were you a waiter before?
She's hard to impress.
Was it Waverly that said that? Who said that?
I think it was Waverly. It was either Waverly or Uncle Rudy.
Is that something they train waiters to do? I mean,
as a former waiter, no. I wish, because that'd be cool, but no. At this point, Alexander, Victoria's husband, comes up in the race car, which is Playboy. Alexander's flirting with Gabby, Victoria's flirting with Solo. It's just the whole flirt fest.
I did like when he's yelling at people at a time. He's like, "Hey, arrivederci, messicano, ma
I think it was their Italian listenership.
That's pretty politically incorrect. I don't know if I'm going to keep that in.
I didn't realize that Alexander was married to Victoria at that point, and that makes that scene a little bit more weird because he was basically asking her out.
Yep. I mean, like I said, they're like both flirting with other people right in front of each other.
Yeah, they're bad guys.
I guess they have that agreement, so whatever works for them.
Ilya is upset that, Alexander was flirting with, and apparently Ilya's been in the bathroom for 30 minutes. Later, like when he comes out, we see a red light behind him, so, he's developing photos. And the photos, he says, were developed in a specific way so that it can detect gamma radiation, which either means that they're making it a Hulk or they're successful in, making a nuclear bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I'm disappointed it didn't go the Hulk direction.
If you made Ilya a Hulk, how much bigger could he get?
That's funny.
Solo's going to go into the shipping company, break in to find out what they have. He's looking very stylish in a turtleneck and a jacket.
His tactile neck, right?
Yes.
Ilya is there too. And what movies have we seen where it's like that? Anything you can do, I can do better. Kind of dick measuring contest between our two male heroes.
Usually, when you have this sort of anything you can do, I can do better, it's between like a man and a woman.
Okay, I know what happens.
Like, Annie, get your gun.
Exactly.
Right. I don't mean like literally the song. I just mean like I have this laser cutter. Oh, I have like a plasma laser cutter or whatever they have.
For some reason, the one that brings to mind is like Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's Captain Barbossa and and Jack Sparrow with their telescopes.
Okay, yeah, that works. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's in tons of movies, but I can't think of any right now.
But yeah, well, I like this because they reluctantly agree to work together to do this. Napoleon Solo's got his pliers that have been like treated with a CO2 laser, and then of course Ilya's just got the CO2 laser, and they're looking around for anything. They split up. They don't find anything until Ilya sees a guard with what looks like his father's watch, and he does this Russian trick which makes him knocks him out while he's standing up.
Yeah, I thought this was going to come back later in the movie, but then it didn't.
Served its purpose. Is it a real move? What was it called?
No.
It was called The Kiss.
The Kiss.
Yeah.
It fits your earlier Spock reference, though, Zach.
It does,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Nice. With his secret knockout move that only he knows.
Yeah.
So they go into the lab. They find the vault down there. Solo is breaking into it, doing this really fancy tricks, and opens the vault, but apparently didn't deactivate the alarm because he said, this one doesn't have an alarm. Except it does.
And then it goes off. That was a good joke.
Loving your work, cowboy. And I like this bit, they both jump out a window thinking that they're going to go right into the water, and they land hard on the dock. And then, I think one of my favorite scenes from this movie.
Yeah, everybody likes this part. I don't really understand why.
So they get on the boat, Ilya's driving, Napoleon falls out of the boat, swims back over to the dock, and gets into this truck. And then in the truck, and he looks over, and there's a nice picnic basket. And it made me hungry, even though I had just eaten when we watched this movie. I was like, oh, I want that sandwich.
And he turned on the car and put on some nice, almost opera music.
That's like Italian jazz.
Yeah, that's it.
But so as this is happening, in the background is explosions and stuff. There's more chase going on. Ilya's doing this whole show, basically. And Napoleon's just casually having some wine and enjoying a sandwich. And the filmmaking of it is just great. You can just see the thing happening in the reflections and all that.
This scene I like because it's more like the TV show. You know, the idea of Napoleon kind of. They both do hard work, but the idea that Napoleon's the one hanging out with the girl and Ilya's back there blowing up stuff and taking care of everything. I thought that was a good.
Right. I didn't see where they're going with this scene, and everyone seems to love it. I just thought it went on a little too long. It's okay, we get the joke.
Probably.
I think it's one of those things where it goes on long enough that it becomes funny again.
All right. But we get a character moment because it looks like Ilya's going to die. And then Napoleon finally leaves his warm car and his sandwich and goes and saves him.
Mm-hmm.
He calmly puts down his sandwich and calmly goes and drives the truck into the water. And you're like, what is he doing?
Onto the enemy boat. It's crunch.
So he's and I think the music is still playing, and he's slowly drifting down, and there's Ilya, and he calmly winds down the window and then goes to save him. So it's just the segue between the calm picnic to the calm saving of Ilya. I thought it was a pretty good segue there too.
This is a survival thing I learned, is that if you're in a car and it's sinking into water, what I've been told, but I'm too scared to try it, obviously, is you want to wait until the water inside the car fills up before you try to open the door, because then the pressure equalizes. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the door open.
Mm-hmm. That's very true, yeah.
If your Atmos system tries to kill you, that's how you beat it.
And I think that's what he did, too, because he wound down the window, let the water come in, and then got out, or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I did notice that he didn't finish the sandwich, so R.I.P. picnic.
Or that bottle of wine, too.
Yeah.
Christian was sad.
Mm-hmm. More for the sandwich than the wine, I think. That was a really good-looking sandwich. It's not like American bread. That was some sort of baguette or something.
Oh, yeah.
Victoria calls Solo's room. And, of course, Solo is still, back at the shipping company. So there's no answer. So she starts going and driving to the hotel. And Solo, Napoleon, and Ilya are going back to the hotel on a Vespa scooter.
Mm-hmm.
As this is going on, Uncle Rudy is... So all the phone calls, basically. Uncle Rudy is calling Gabby and asks if Ilya's there. He says, and Gabby says that Ilya's asleep. Asks her to go to lunch tomorrow. And then she said, yeah, okay. And then Gabby calls room 304. Who's in room 304? We don't know. But she says that the meeting is confirmed. So now there's some other party that's going in on everything, too.
And you're like, oh, no, is she a traitor?
Solo and Ilya get back at the hotel at the same time as Victoria, and they have to like sneak around to get back. Victoria opens the door. Solo's there in a robe. We found out Ilya has another bug that he didn't find.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria's there. She sleeps with Solo.
While you're there, might as well.
Yeah.
Why not?
The next day, Solo has a meeting with Victoria, and Gabby has her lunch with Uncle Rudy. As she goes for lunch, Ilya is following in his car,
Mm-hmm.
and Alexander's at the lunch as well. Gabby says, I know that my father is there. She says something else, but the music gets really loud, so we can't hear what she's saying. Ilya's like listening in on the conversation, and he like panics, and we don't know what was said, but we just see his reaction.
So this whole part
Yeah.
is a little too clever, if you ask me. I know Guy Ritchie loves to do it, but twice in this movie, he's like, something dramatic happens and you don't know what's going on, and then he explains what's happening like 2 minutes later. So I felt like it would have been more effective if she just did her big dramatic reveal right now, rather than trying to confuse us.
No, because then you get the other reveal later.
Okay.
Because the way they do it, you're able to get both Ilya's reaction there, and you get Solo's reaction, which I'll get to right now. So Solo has his meeting with Victoria, and she says to, help yourself to a drink. But of course, his drink is poisoned.
They were all poisoned. I
Yes.
spent 10 years building up an immunity to iocane powder.
And Victoria also she calls him Mr. Solo, and says that Gabby gave both of them up. So this is where we find out what was actually said. So I like Ilya's reaction at that moment, but you also get Napoleon's reaction now.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how Napoleon, as he's being drugged and is about to pass out, he like puts himself on the couch, puts some pillows under his head, gets himself comfortable.
Doesn't want to hurt yourself.
I've been here before.
He's accepted it. It's
He
gonna
likes
happen
party
now.
drugs, I guess.
Oh no.
But yeah, as this is going on, Ilya is being chased by a bunch of dogs.
He does a pretty
Get
sweet
away.
jump over a fence to get away.
Yeah, I was impressed. He didn't even struggle.
Mhm.
Thought he was going to have a little bit of a hard time.
Well, it was
Does he
all part of
usually
the
do?
plan. It was all part of the plan, as we learn later.
So Solo wakes up. He's tied to a chair. Victoria there, and she's telling this story like about these 3 different torturers who are all infamous, but apparently they're all the same man, Uncle Rudy.
Who cares? This whole
No.
part was so tedious. I don't care about Uncle Rudy's backstory.
Uncle
He's not even the
Rudy.
main bad guy.
One of the names that he had was the Butcher of Belsen, which of course made me think of the Butcher of Blaviken, because we're talking about Henry Cavill here.
What's that?
Wait, who is he?
Not from The Witcher.
It's from The Witcher. That's one of his
Oh.
names.
Well, it made me think of Bergen-Belsen, like the concentration camp.
Oh, which is probably the actual reference that was.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But yeah, so we're not going to go through the whole thing, but
Yeah, it
he's
goes
getting
on and on
tortured
and
by
on.
Uncle Rudy with electric shocks. He starts monologuing about his childhood, how he
Yeah,
got good
yeah.
at torture, and he's showing like Napoleon all these photos of all the different tortures he's done.
Messed
And he
up.
says that he'll get his own like page in this photo book, but not in black and white. This one's going to be in color.
They could have cut this movie to an hour and a half if they just cut out a few minutes here.
Okay, I agree with you that this was showing him getting tortured through the shocks was effective, but I didn't need the monologue.
Yeah. You got to get the bad guy the monologue, though, I guess.
Well, they gave the wrong bad guy the monologue, but more on that later. Again, more previews, yes.
This is the first time we realized that Uncle Rudy is a bad guy. We thought he was just the innocent uncle before, didn't we?
I thought he was just a racist.
Yeah, from that talk, that makes me think of eugenics. Eugenics, that's what it is, really.
Okay.
And that makes you think of Nazis. So
So he
and,
wasn't perfect.
I don't think you have too many movies now where you have a racist character who's still a good guy.
Yeah, Carolyn, that was a
That's
bit of an
true.
understatement. You were like, so he's not perfect, just a little eugenics on the side.
I quickly transitioned.
You did. I heard you try to recover.
So he's a pretty terrible guy. And
Yeah.
turns out
Just because he's a
really
terrible
good
guy
church
doesn't make him the
artist.
villain, of course. But now we know he is.
yeah,
Hi, Spy-Fi fans. We have a promotion for you.
this is not an ad.
No, it is not.
We're offering you a chance to win a free Spy-Fi Guys t-shirt if you live in the US or Canada.
All you have to do is leave a 5-star review for this podcast on iTunes and use the code word SUMMER in the review.
That's the code word SUMMER.
You have until the end of the Swinging 60s summer, so the end of September 2021.
We will select our winner at random from all the entries received.
Again, that's a 5-star written review with the code word SUMMER for your chance to win.
Good luck, and thank you for listening. Ilya had another tracker on Napoleon. Intercut with that, we get Gabby being brought to her father. Ilya finds Solo. They put Uncle Rudy in the chair. And so that, like, he says, you don't have to torture me. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. They have the bomb. It's at Vikander Island.
A bomb delivery happening at 8 p.m.
And this is where the short in the wiring, which we didn't really mention, but that was there before, it starts acting up again. And so Solo and Ilya go into another room to discuss, should they get rid of him or should they keep him alive or what are they going to do? But then the decision is made for them when the short acts up and kills Uncle Rudy.
I did like this.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't go on too long. It was a good joke. It was very black humor, but I still like that.
Yeah.
I felt the opposite of you, Zach, because I think because you didn't really appreciate the calm truck with the fight scene in the background, and I thought that was pretty good.
Okay.
And inversely, they're like their faces. They can see that the fire coming from the chair is like reflected on their faces.
It's not that they weren't even like turned away, not seeing it. It was
your
like
head
they were
a
this,
quarter of an inch.
yeah.
Okay.
And
We
see
can
that
agree to
this guy
disagree.
is in flames.
Maybe they
Yeah, it
don't
was supposed to
care
be fun.
that much.
Maybe. We know that they don't because Solo's like, damn, my jacket was still in there.
Yeah.
I felt for him there. He's like, that is a nice suit. I wouldn't want to have pants without the jacket.
But also human being.
Yes, also that. Gabby gets to Vikander Island, and she finally gets to see her father. Apparently, he's been having regrets, and like she slaps him, but that's just a cover because obviously she doesn't want him to actually make a bomb.
This reminded me of Jyn Erso meeting Gavin Erso in Rogue One.
Galen.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Huh.
Wait, do we know at this point that what side she's on?
No, not yet. The very next scene we find out.
Yes, when we meet Waverly and his army.
Yeah, so Ilya and Napoleon are taking a chopper to Vikander Island. Waverly's there, and we find out he's British naval intelligence, and both Ilya and Napoleon separately get calls from their bosses saying that you'll report to him now.
Well, what else do the bosses say?
They're both ordered to stop the bomb and get the intelligence on the disc and kill the other one if necessary.
Well, what did you guys think about that?
It sounds accurate for the era.
Yeah.
You know, they need to get the information. And the Rotha is like, whoever has this information will basically win the Cold War.
Yeah, I think realistic. Like you work together for as long as you need to, but you're not friends. So as soon as you can, you try to take advantage of the other.
I mean, it makes sense that their bosses would tell them that. I'm asking, do you feel like it works as like a narrative? Like, did you actually believe that one of them would kill the other one?
No, because like I said, I do think they didn't keep that up throughout the whole movie. Like the whole, it's a good point, Zach. They did kind of just seem like they worked well together. They do work well together, so.
So I didn't necessarily buy, it wasn't, for me, the tension wasn't, will one actually kill the other? It's how will they get out of killing each other?
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. This is where we find out that Gabby has been working for Waverly this whole time.
She's actually a triple agent, but for the UK. The UK is playing all sides, so they're going to come out on top.
Now that we know where Gabby's true allegiances lie, we know that Gabby's faking this whole thing.
She's been a good actress this whole time.
Yeah. She tells Alexander and Victoria, who are there, that her father will continue to work on the bomb. He's had a change of heart now. And that she will help him assemble everything.
Did they say how Gabby got recruited while she was in Eastern Germany?
Once Dr. Teller disappeared, they knew that the way to get to him would be through Gabby. And so they recruited Gabby early on, like 2 years ago, I think, is what he says.
They don't explain like how they got her on board, like what incentives they offered her.
And like while she was working as a mechanic, like how did they...
I mean, Germany or Berlin was known as like the city of spies during that time. So there's spies all over the place. As many of the movies that we've covered before have shown, there's spies all over Berlin. But yeah, so I like there's a line where like Waverly's like, we spent 2 years of this and what we got was you two. Thanks for nearly ruining my operation. Waverly is the person who told Gabby to give up the other two because Ilya's cover was about to be blown, and thus and therefore so would Napoleon's. And the only way for her to stay in the game was to blow their covers, stay in the game herself.
It's the classic misdirect where you finger your ally to get suspicion taken off of you. I do it all the time while playing werewolf.
Ooh. Yeah, we'll keep that in mind next time we play with you.
Yeah, right?
It's kind of a Waverly affair a little bit. At least you got to see.
That's true.
He does come up with his own little schemes sometimes. So try to. They don't know for sure what's going on.
But where are the rings?
Oh yes, just the engagement ring, maybe.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I thought it was going to do something.
Yeah, no. At least not that we see.
Waverly needs Ilya and Napoleon's help to get Gabby and her father. And, of course, the bomb.
And the disc.
And the disc, yeah. Well,
so many things.
He doesn't care so much about the disc, I think.
Okay.
Like, it's never mentioned whether Waverly and British intelligence... Actually, he's not even British. He's British naval intelligence.
Oh, fancy.
So that's why he has access to, the naval commandos.
Mm-hmm.
Gabby is helping her father assemble the bomb. She causes a distraction while he switches out one of the lenses, which would make it not work. But of course, Victoria catches on and puts Gabby in a cell and says, "You have 20 minutes to fix all the things you made."
Yep.
We find out they're going to storm the island that night. Dr. Teller fixes the bomb. Victoria takes the disc with all his research and then kills him.
Dun dun dun. Shocking.
Now that you mentioned the whole Rogue One aspect to that, I'm like, I can't unsee it.
I'm not saying they ripped off this movie, but I'm not saying they didn't.
Well, it came out the same year. That also came out in 2015.
Oh, it's like one of those parallel movies like Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Or Mission Impossible Rogue Nation and Spectre, which are basically the same movie. The British Navy storm the beach, and Ilya and Solo are with them. There's a lot of nice split screening here.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love commando attacks. Why wasn't this in the Red Sea Diving Resort?
Ilya is using what's known as the Uncle Special that Gunn I talked about briefly last week, and I'll talk about a bit more later.
I also noticed that, yes.
Solo actually finds a guard who has Ilya's watch, and he sees Gabby and the bomb being loaded onto a jeep.
Right.
And then we get this really cool chase sequence. So Ilya gets a motorcycle to chase after the jeep, and Solo takes a dune buggy.
This chase scene is good, but it goes on way too long.
Yeah,
I say that a lot.
That's fair.
I was actually about to say, this is when I start falling asleep in every modern day spy movie, because why does it always have to have an action chase scene? We don't need that in every movie.
I support that.
Christian doesn't. I
mean, okay.
Adam likes them too.
I'll give you this one. I will give you this. There are good moments in this, but yeah, we could have cut it down a little bit. I like there's a part where the jeep is trying to go across the water and just goes very slowly, and of course when Napoleon does it, he backs up a little and basically glides across the water.
It's called hydroplaning. We learned about it in driver's ed. But my question here is, how did Ilya get across the river?
Oh, we do see it. So he actually sees the river. He finds a different spot and he jumps across on the motorcycle.
That's when the rest of us had sort of zoned out because
I was zoning out big time.
Yeah, that's fair. So they're all on the other side of the water, and then Alexander in the jeep rams the bike, but then Napoleon in the dune buggy rams the jeep that they're in. So they're all crashed, and then Alexander and Solo fight, but Ilya is still knocked out. But when he does wake up, he's angry, of course, brings over the frame of the motorcycle and throws it at Alexander.
Okay, so that was good.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you want to say about the fight, or can I just say they kill him?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, he gets stabbed by by Ilya.
Okay, so it's this really dramatic moment, but I'm like, we barely even know this guy, and he's supposed to be
we don't
one
know
of the
much
bad
about
guys?
Alexander. Yeah.
So he should have had that big monologue about his history, not Uncle Rudy.
I can see it. Yeah.
No, Uncle Rudy's like the torturer. He's like Desaad. Alexander is like Darkseid. So he needs the big speech, the big monologue, rather than just being like a guy they fight and kill and nobody cares.
We just know he's a flirt and he's married to Victoria, right? What else do we know about him?
When he dies, isn't it like a slow motion or something really dramatic? I seem to remember that.
is like pulling a gun, and Ilya stabs him before he can even make the shot. The only other important thing that happens in this scene is that Solo grabs the disc.
Okay.
But yeah, so the Brits all arrive and they analyze the bomb. Found out, yes, it is a bomb, but it is not the nuclear bomb. Apparently, there was another bomb, which
Okay,
It was a ruse.
This makes no sense to me. Maybe you guys
Oh.
can make. Okay, so we have two bombs. One bomb is your traditional atomic bomb. The other bomb is designed to go where the atomic bomb goes. So, like, in case the atomic bomb didn't destroy the target, you have this extra bomb just in case.
It's called coupling.
That's absurd.
What's that?
Is it not absurd? Why would you have a bomb that tracks to where an atomic bomb lands? Except for if you need the plot to do exactly what they do later.
That
I mean, I know this part goes kind of fast. Like, there's a lot
Yeah.
of fast talking. And at this point, you're like, please let the movie end. But I still wanted to talk about it.
That's a fair question because
I didn't really think about it.
Gonna destroy everything. Maybe in case it doesn't work. I don't even know.
It's another example of the movie trying to be a little too clever. Like, when they blow up Victoria later, they should have been like, we're super secret spies. We have a tracker on you. And here's a missile up your butt. That would have worked.
Again, I didn't really think about it too much, so I think it's supposed to be something where you just sort of like you think about it, you have it in the back of your mind, and then it come back later. The whole thing about there being a second bomb was fine because they're smart. They're an international criminal organization, so of course they're going to have a fake bomb.
Yep.
That's not even a fake bomb. I was thinking it more like,
a duplicate, an extra bomb. Yeah, a decoy bomb, not a fake bomb. You're right.
It's not the nuclear weapon, so let's use this as a decoy because it's less important.
Right.
So they're trying to figure out how they got the bomb off the island if it wasn't on the Jeep. Apparently, there are fishing boats that leave the island every morning. Solo remembers the name of the Vinci Guerra's old fishing boat, which is Diadema. Gabby has an idea. Apparently, the idea involves the captain of the British naval aircraft carrier calling the fishing boat. Says he has a message for Victoria. And, of course, the captain's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But then Solo gets on the line, and it starts insulting her husband, saying that he killed her husband and that he did not have had a very shameful death. And, he pleaded and begged and all that sort of stuff. And, of course, this gets her ire.
It was so scary.
It's kind of mean.
And so she gets on the line, and she starts to threaten his whole family. And of course, Solo reveals that they've been locking onto her radio signal, which she said, okay, fine, but it's not going to give you a precise match. Of course, this is where the coupling device comes into it. So they use the warhead that they had left behind, and they blow Victoria up.
But wasn't the nuke on a dinghy the last time we saw it? I guess it was
on the boat.
But I think we saw them loading it onto a dinghy that was next to the boat.
Yeah.
In fairness. So I guess
it was next
that
to the
counts.
boat, and everything blows up, and that's all solved.
Except for the deal with the U-boat. What's the deal with the U-boat? Who was in it?
I wasn't sure. They said former Nazis. So apparently there's former Nazis had control of a U-boat.
Okay, sure.
Hey, I mean, it's like the fall of the Empire. You have all these different remnants, still have all this tech.
I mean, it works in a spy movie.
Yeah, it works in a spy movie. Life, not so much.
I missed the whole U-boat thing.
That's who they were delivering the
bomb
to. And then Ilya gets a call from his boss. Ilya doesn't know that Solo has the disc, but somehow the boss knows and says, all right, kill him and get the disc. Meanwhile, Solo is packing up his own room. Ilya sees the disc that's under one of Solo's vests, and they both have their guns ready. And right as we think fighting's about to start, Solo grabs something else, and it's Ilya's father's watch and hands it back to him.
Oh,
which is a nice moment. Yeah, and you can see beforehand when you thought the fight was about to start, you saw Ilya's hand start to twitch as if they were about to go for it, and then twitching stops. And they reveal to each other that they both know each other's missions, and say, "All right, well, what are we going to do about it?" And they're both out on the balcony having a drink, and you can just see there's something smoking in an ashtray, and we find out that that's the disc. So they burnt it up. Waverly and Gabby come up. Waverly has recruited them for another mission in Istanbul. And he says, we have a new code name for our operation, Uncle.
Oh, the start of a franchise that never happened.
Oh. The other thing I noticed, because I continued watching the credits after I usually turn this off, they actually have photos of them in Istanbul of their mission. We don't find out what the mission was, but we just see them in Istanbul and all sorts of stuff.
Nice. I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's the end of the movie.
I wonder if Henry Cavill, or how sad Henry Cavill was that there was no sequel, because I saw something that said he was excited by this movie because for once he didn't have to be shirtless. Apparently it's a lot of work to prepare for being shirtless, because you have to I watched something about that for his scene in The Witcher, and he has to eat really clean and basically dehydrate himself for 3 days in order to have all the muscles showing.
It's hard to be a man actor, a lot of body shaming. It's tough.
Well, I mean, actually, speaking of body shaming and Henry Cavill, so he tried out for the role of James Bond in Casino Royale, and one of the ways, and maybe this is what his comment was about, the traditional audition role for James Bond actors is the role, there's a scene from Russia with Love where he's about to get into the shower, into the bath, and then finds the girl in his bed, and so they always do shirtless in a towel. Is how they do this. And when he auditioned,
that's an audition scene.
Yes, for Bond.
That's weird. Okay.
The director of Casino Royale, Martin Campbell, actually made a little body shaming towards Henry Cavill at times. Said, "Looking a little tubby there, Henry."
Really?
Terrible.
Yeah, I was like,
It
"Whoa!"
doesn't surprise me, but I mean that somebody would say that in movies.
Tough industry.
Yeah, so maybe this is probably exactly why I'm hoping that.
What year was that?
2006.
Okay, I would like to think that with everything that's happened in recent years, that doesn't go on anymore.
I would like to think so too, but
I would guess that it does though, because
I do want him. He's on my short list of 3 or 4 different actors who I want to be the next Bond, and I think he would be great. But if you want, talking about the other actor of main character in this, Armie Hammer, he actually made a statement. I think it was either this year or last year. He said he would do Another Man from U.N.C.L.E. in a heartbeat. He even said that if someone wrote a really good piece of fanfic, he'd narrate it. If someone wrote an extremely good piece of fanfic, I would go to Guy Ritchie and be like, "You guys need to read this, then give this person co-writing credit, because let's just get this movie made. Let's just do this." Because he really wants to do one.
Oh.
It seemed like this movie would work pretty well for streaming services, because there aren't these huge bases exploding and fight scenes over lava. It doesn't feel like a super blockbuster kind of movie. So I'm keeping the dream alive.
I mean, hey, we're somehow... Wait, when did the last Sherlock Holmes movie come out?
Long time ago.
Apparently it's getting a third one. And that's also Guy Ritchie. So maybe...
When I was looking at this, that said that he was shocked recently to hear that there was kind of a fan base or cult following that really liked that movie, because he was like, some movies you make, you just don't, you can't, you're like, oh, I can't go back and watch this one, but he was like, but this one I like it, I'll still go back and watch it and enjoy it anyway. So he was happy to hear that there's people out there that enjoyed the movie, even if it didn't pan out,
Right. Well, I mean, okay, so how did this actually do in the theater, in the box office?
I don't think it did very well.
I don't think the critics, I don't think liked it too much either. Maybe it's reversed. Critics liked it and didn't do well.
I think you're right. I don't think it got the best reviews, nor a lot of dollars.
Yeah, it looks like, against a budget of $75 million, it only made $109 million worldwide.
That's not great.
So,
no.
That's still a profit though, right?
Usually when they talk about these budget things, that's not including the marketing. So really, you need to get twice that production budget to get any sort of profit.
And Hollywood accountants.
Yeah, that whole thing. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a approval rating of 67%.
That's pretty good for Rotten Tomatoes, isn't it?
Not horrible.
Yeah.
It's not a red tomato though.
I think that's red tomato.
Is that a red tomato? All right, it got a red tomato.
Yeah.
I would think what you were saying, Zach, about the budget. I think that could actually help the movie a lower budget in a way, because one of my sort of things I think I didn't like I felt like it tried too hard to make it an action movie in certain elements. I think the thing about the show that I like is the kind of repertoire between the two characters and missions and things, but it doesn't need to be super flashy, I don't think. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe streaming service will pick it up.
I can definitely see that. So, shall we move into our spy fact versus spy fiction?
That's right. As usual, I don't have any, because when it's not in the Swingin' 60s, I handle most of it. So I'm taking a vacation.
All right. So I've got a couple different things here. So Dr. Teller, early on in the movie, we find out that he was brought over to help with the American nuclear program. This, of course, would be a reference to Operation Paperclip, where German scientists such as Werner von Braun were taken from Germany to the U.S. and worked on various things such as the rocket program and also nuclear programs. Now, I said we'd talk about a bit more about the Trabants, because that is a big part of exhibits at the International Spy Museum here in D.C. They also have what's known as the Parade of Trabants, which is the biggest Trabant rally every year. They have it around the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now, Trabants are an East German car produced from 1957 to 1990. People like to say that it's like a cardboard frame, but it's actually Duraplast, which sounds like something from Star Wars. Yeah. So it would take a long time to get a car because of there wasn't a lot of great supply of them. So as people, would put in an order for one when you're like 16 and get one when you're 20, if that. And they were used on occasion to try to sneak across the border. And at the Spy Museum, one of the features pre-pandemic was they had a space where you could sort of try to fit yourself into like the engine block of a Trabant.
The other thing about the Trabant and the cost I thought was interesting was that used Trabants are more expensive than new ones.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because it takes so long to get a new Trabant that a used one is more valuable and costs more.
In Berlin currently, there's also a Trabant museum, which I want to visit, and there's also a place where you can like drive Trabants on like a rally track.
Oh, I think I saw that while I was there. It had a hot air balloon next to it, and there were a bunch of trabbies that were painted different colors.
Yes, that is that place. And once we were able to travel again, I want to go to Berlin because I've never been to Berlin, and I want to drive a Trabant on a rally track.
Parade of Trabants that Christian was talking about with the International Spy Museum was virtual this year, but that made it pretty cool because they actually were able to kind of take their Zoom and relinquish control to Trabant owners and not factories, but like sales places and collectors in Berlin and in Germany and around the world to kind of show off their collection and things like that. Nice. So that was really cool.
And so Kelly alluded to this earlier, that there are a number of different ways people tried to get over the Berlin Wall. There are, at least in my research, I found 2 different cases of people zip-lining across.
No, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. But
were they successful?
I'm not surprised.
Yes. So in one of them, it was, let's see, his name was Heinz Hospafel, who was an engineer and economist, and in the East German House of Ministries. And so he brought his wife and his young son up to a building right across the wall and hurled a hammer painted with phosphorus and attached to a length of thin rope across the wall, which ran parallel to the edge of the building. Helpers in the west attached a metal cable to the hammer and then pulled it back up on the roof, and using a homemade harness made of a bicycle wheel axle, he sent first his son and then his wife gliding across the border via zip line, following after them himself. In a stunning turn of events, Soviet officers had witnessed the entire escapade, but presumed that the Stasi was smuggling agents into the West and didn't open fire.
Nice.
So the other case that I've heard about was the case of Ingo Bethke. It's hard to pronounce. So Ingo actually escaped on an air mattress with a friend over on the river. But he had 2 brothers who escaped with him that way, so he eventually went to go get them. So he trained in archery and found a tall building that overlooked East Berlin, rather. And he snuck into an attic and shot a wire across with an arrow with a wire cable across the wall and attached it to a car, just like this. And actually, just like this, the metal pulley, attached it to a car. And with a metal pulley, they used the zip line to get the other 2 brothers across. But they miscalculated and landed just short of getting across the wall. So they actually had to shimmy across the rest of the wire.
Do we know how many people tried to get across the Berlin Wall and succeeded versus failed?
That is a great question that I do not know.
Failed.
A lot failed. If you go to that museum in Berlin, they probably have that fact there. I remember there was like all these stories of people failing and succeeding, and they had a lot of facts there. So I'm sure they have at least some sense of it if you research it.
All right. Find that out. Let's see. So the Spanish Steps were not designed by a Russian, but actually designed by Francesco de Sanctis, who is an Italian Baroque architect.
What? He lied to us?
Mhm.
Or he was misinformed. I wouldn't be surprised. He is from the Soviet Union.
When they're breaking into the Vinciguerra shipping, and they both are picking locks, and what's his name? Napoleon Solo does it by hand with a traditional set of lock picks. Ilya is using something else, and it looked like he was using what's known as a snap gun or a lockpick gun, which can be used without finesse and very easily to lockpick. Basically, the way it works, unlike a regular lockpick where you try to get each individual pin, the snap gun basically uses a burst of energy to get all the pins out of alignment, and that's why it's called a snap gun. But the downside of this is that it usually damages the lock, or more noticeable than the using regular lockpicks. And my last thing is about the Man from Uncle Gun, or otherwise known as the Uncle Special, which we did see Ilya using a variation of it. So the original one from the show was first based on a German Mauser pistol, but then later converted for a Walter 1938. It adds a hand grip with shoulder stock and extension. And my fun fact for it is that a toy of the original Uncle Gun was the inspiration behind the design of the original Transformer Megatron, who transforms into a Walther P-38 gun. All right, and that's what I've got for Spy Fact versus Spy Fiction.
All right, thank you. All right, so next we have our favorite quotes. Would anyone like to go first with this very quotable Guy Ritchie movie?
There's a lot of good quotes.
A lot to be said. How about our guest stars go first?
So I really enjoyed the fashion scene when they're in that store, especially after I have not seen the reunion movie, Carolyn. So I appreciated your insights that I guess he was a fashion designer later on. But I like the quote where, you know, he's picking out clothes and trying to match up, I guess like a belt or something with an outfit. And Napoleon's like, it won't match. And he's like, it doesn't have to match. Because anyway, I think other women would think that is amusing as well. Because that's always an argument. It's fashion, right? Of like the matching versus unmatching. Did you think that was funny, Carolyn?
Yeah, I did enjoy that scene. But the quote that I thought was funny was, I guess, during the beginning, during the chase scene, where he's like, you know, take a left here, go right here, go through this alleyway. And she's really incredulous. She's like, this seems like a terrible idea, but okay, I'll do what you're saying. And they get stuck between two walls. And she's like, come on, like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's no way this is the right way to go. And he goes, you know, take another left through the window. You know, first he actually kind of good timing, I thought. He like takes the what is it called? The thing that you wind the window
crank.
The window crank. He just goes winds down the window and he goes, take another left through the window. And they've landed perfectly so that the window is right outside the car and you can get in. I just thought that was really funny because I was not expecting that. I was like, great, he screwed up.
He's Henry Cavill. He can't screw up.
Also, quick interjection. After as Carolyn was talking, I was like, wait, I shouldn't have said just women would enjoy. Men would also enjoy the fashion scene as well, as as demonstrating in his very quote. So,
and I mean, I even said I enjoy that scene.
I know. That's why I thought about that. I was like, wait, don't say that. That's bad.
I also thought that was interesting because it was like the men fighting over the fashion.
That is true, yeah.
That was what made it kind of funny.
Like,
but then I feel kind of bad about it because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Although it would have been unusual in the 60s.
Well,
that's fair.
Because Henry Cavill was trying to dress her in this kind of like boxy. That was a nice dress, and then Ilya had her like very fashionable 60s style. So he clearly had opinions, but she seemed to like it.
Okay, I'll go next. So mine are both from Jared Harris, who spoke with an American accent that was really weird sounding.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it at the time, but he says, we are not in the haberdashery business, which I liked. Or is it haberdashery? Do you pronounce the R? Haberdashery versus haberdashery?
Not sure.
Who knows?
Okay. I don't remember that.
You're good.
That's funny.
And then he says later, inside every crowd is an American trying to get out.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Speaking of xenophobia, jingoism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That was funny, especially because, like, yeah, the Americans took them right after. Like, we were basically like, oh, yeah, it's all right now. we need you to help us beat the Russians. So
Yeah, you're on our side now.
All right, I've got a few. So I like one from Ilya when he's. I think Uncle Rudy is like commenting on his size and so you're built like a bricklayer, not a architect. And he's like, I like to joke.
Nah.
My other one from Ilya, he's talking to, I think it's in the scene in the cafe, giving a bit of Solo's backstory. It's like, why did you become one of their best agents? And he said, I concluded it must be to counteract the humiliation of knowing that your balls are at the end of a very long leash, held by a very short man.
Yeah, that's why Henry Cavill kind of gave it right back to him and twice as hard. He's the one who started all the shit talk.
But my final favorite quote is from Waverly, who says, for a special agent, you're not having a very special day, are you?
Special day.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move this along. So now it is time for our ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 martinis, 1 being awful spy movie, 10 being amazing. How would you guys rate The Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2015?
I gave it a 7. I thought it had a lot of clever moments, and I always am up for a Cold War, West Berlin, East Berlin kind of movie. So I love that it has the West Berlin, East Berlin, spy aspect to it. But like I said, I think maybe they tried a little too hard for that action movie, which I feel like is really common these days, right? Like, there's a reason my fiance doesn't like any of the new Star Trek movies, and it's because, they've made them like real actiony. But I think if they just had cut that down just a tad, I would have given it a higher rating. But overall, definitely enjoyable. Would see a sequel.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I guess I'd give it a 6. I mean, I also kind of get bored during action scenes sometimes. That's not really what I look for in a movie. I did enjoy Henry Cavill. I did enjoy the female leads that were in there. So Victoria, I thought she was a pretty cool villain. And Gabby, I thought she was a really strong character. I was thinking it didn't pass the Bechdel test, but it barely did.
Oh,
Which
The
part?
Bechdel, it has to have at least 2 named women in it, which it does, and who talk to each other. And there's the scene right where she's helping her dad sabotage the
all right.
try and sabotage the nuclear bomb, and Victoria comes into the room and they kind of have like a 5-second conversation where they're like, I don't even remember what they say, but they like acknowledge
Talking
each
about the
other at
bomb.
least. Yeah, and they're not talking about a guy; they're talking about a bomb.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it does
barely.
yeah, just barely. So I would have liked to see more development into Gabby's character, which I guess maybe they would have done in the next movie, but kind of more about how she got into the spy business and kind of pursue that line. So because they kind of saved her as a surprise at the end, but because of it, they didn't really develop her as much. They just kind of portrayed her as this kind of mechanic girl who's going along with the flow and doesn't really know what she's doing. So I don't know. I think they could have done more with her, but it was an enjoyable movie, and I would have watched a sequel.
Nice. So I will give it a 6 out of 10 martinis. I understand people love this movie. It didn't really work that well for me, frankly. I understand what they were trying to do with the banter between the 2 male leads, but I didn't feel like it really gelled as much as it could. Also, it had a little bit of Return of the King syndrome ending, not as bad as Munich, but like I feel like the emotional climax of the movie is when the ship explodes, but then we have the fight, then we have the other thing, and then we have them getting briefed again. So I don't know. I'm not really summarizing my views too well, but I could see why people like it. Although it was a well-made movie, it just didn't work that well for me.
All right. Well, I'm going to take the other end of the spectrum from you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because I really like this movie. On the other hand, I think the byplay between them works really well. I think that I like their chemistry together. It's sort of like frenemy situation. I enjoy that a lot. And I think I'd seen none of the show before I'd seen this movie. So my only knowledge was that there's, 2 characters, one Russian, one American, and they're both spies. It really got sort of this feel of like the 60s without being like Austin Powers kind of, all right, we're going to really play up all the weirdest tropes of the 60s. So they made it a lot more stylish, and like I love the look of it. I love the cinematography of it. Things that you thought were too clever, I thought were just clever enough. So which made me feel good. Oh, that's right, this is coming. So I really like this movie, and I would love to see a sequel, and I hope it happens. Even just another movie with Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer would be great too. I know Armie Hammer was supposed to be Batman in one iteration of Justice League at some point, so I hope something happens with the two of them because I like their chemistry.
Okay. I would also watch the sequel, by the way. Just wanted to put that out there. Well, thank you to our guest stars for joining us. And you can find us on social media at the Spy-Fi Guys under Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And we are the Spy-Fi Guys signing off.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. The theme music is by Jer Fitzgerald and Big Man Joe. Media reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
This is a personal podcast. Any views, statements, or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the participants. They do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the participants may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.
You can find our podcast on social media at the Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.